Chelsea. This is my booktube channel, The Fancy Hat Lady Reads. I'm wearing my fancy booktube hat, and today I'm bringing you my book haul for the months of June and July. Now, July isn't over yet, but somehow I have managed enough books that it would be foolish nonsense to put off doing a haul video any longer. I don't know how this happened. I will say I have a tendency to buy myself books when I'm feeling like positive about life and I feel like I'm accomplishing things, and I feel like there are some things in the last couple months that I have accomplished that have made me feel justified in buying especially very cheap used books. So I've actually bought a lot of them. And then yesterday I went to a thrift store looking for cardigans and or hats, and I left with no cardigans, no hats, but 4 books. And so those 4 books, I guess, sort of tipped me over the edge into I must now film a book haul land. What I have here, I've counted, are 13 used books, 3 new books from Book Outlet Order, and 1 other thing. 5 of the used books, 5 of them were $1 books, and 1 was a 50-cent book. And then the maximum that I paid for any of the other used books was $4. So, I mean, bargains. Anyhow, there aren't even any books here that I've already read that I would normally show first in a book haul. These are all books going on to my TBR, or that are already on my TBR. And so the first stack that I'm going to go through here are the 50-cent and $1 books. The 50-cent book is this mass market paperback of Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency by Douglas Adams. I've actually never read Douglas Adams before. One would think that the place I would want to start would be Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, but I've always kind of wanted to start with this book instead. So yeah, there's this one. Now there are the $1 books, the first of which is actually the one I got most recently. This one has been on my library TBR for some time. It's actually gotten very close to the top of my library TBR, so I would have been getting it from the library very soon anyways, and it is The King of Elfland's Daughter by Lord Dunsany. This has been on my TBR since well before I started BookTube. This is a fantasy novel from 1924. It's a major landmark of the genre. The writing is meant to be exceptionally gorgeous, and now that I have it, I don't have to get it from the library. The next books I have here are 2 more Charles de Lint books, which I keep acquiring, which is total nonsense because I have still yet to read an entire book of his work. But these were each $1, and they both looked like things I might like. The first of them is Moonheart, which is the only de Lint book I've acquired so far that isn't a Newford book. It is an urban fantasy. I believe it takes place in Canada, and it is from 1984 originally. And the second $1 Charles de Lint book is Spirits in the Wires. I picked this one up because it's the book that comes in reading order after this one, which is The Onion Girl, which is probably the first of de Lint's novels that I'm going to read. Most of his Newford books are meant to be read in any order. There isn't a particular reading order, but there are 3 of these books that should be read in a specific order according to Goodreads. First one is The Onion Girl, the second one is Spirits in the Wires, and the third one, I believe, is Widdershins. And I think this is because they all follow a set of characters that are major recurring characters in the Newford series, but that aren't usually the protagonists of the books and stories. And these 3 books that were actually written later in the Newford series in publication order all follow that set of characters. That's how I understand it. Now, I was a little surprised to notice that even though these 2 editions that I have matching cover art, they actually have really different cover design, and even though they're both paperbacks, they are ever so slightly a different size. This one's like 1/4 of an inch taller. So That's interesting. Make of that what you will. This apparently has to do with people literally disappearing into an online research database. So that sounds really cool. The next $1 book I have is this hardcover of The Dark Mirror by Juliet Marillier. I'm sort of making a habit of when I see super cheap copies of books that are either the first in one of her series or chronologically the next in a series that I have some of her books, I'm just grabbing them. This is the first in a trilogy. For some reason, I've been seeing in bookstores lately like a sparkly new edition of the second book in this trilogy, but not the first or the third, so I don't know what's up with that, but I'm guessing that the second book is going to be pretty accessible to find for cheap if I end up liking this one. I've seen it on Book Outlet. To be honest, I'm not totally sure what this one is about, but I have it because it was $1. The last $1 book I have is The Storied Life of A.J. Fikry by Gabrielle Zevin. I picked this up because I've heard good things about it. It is a book about a bookshop. That always appeals. And it's also really quite short, so I'm guessing it will be a pretty quick read. Okay, on to the used books that were, gasp, more than $1. I have 2 that I bought used from the Amazon Marketplace. These were both the type of books that the official price of the book is 1 cent and then shipping is $3.99, so it ends up being $4. And they're both books that I have been really wanting. The first one is Lips Touch 3 Times by Laini Taylor. This is her collection of 3 novellas, and it's also got these gorgeous full-page illustrations for every story. And the stories in this book are Goblin Fruit, Spicy Little Curses Such as These, and Hatchling. And this is a book that I'm going to probably be prioritizing on my TBR, probably above a bunch of these other more impulsive purchases, because ever since reading the Daughter of Smoke and Bone trilogy, I've been wanting to go back and read some of Laini Taylor's older books that were published before that trilogy. The other one of these used online purchases is Shades of Milk and Honey by Mary Robinette Kowal. This is the first in a series called The Glamorous Histories, and I was hoping when I bought this that this would end up being the edition that matches the cover art of the rest of the series, but it isn't, but oh well. Anyhow, this is a series that is alternate Regency with magic. And this first book is meant to be a Regency romance with magic. It seems like not only the sort of book that I would really like, but a sort of book that I would want to lend out to a bunch of people I know who I think would also maybe like this sort of book. So it's a book that I wanted to purchase. I'm gonna say, these are both ex-library copies. And when I get ex-library copies, when I order books online, I always feel sort of awkward if I get them and they don't say anywhere on them that they are withdrawn from circulation. It makes me feel like if you were to just wander up to my bookshelf and look at my books, it would look like I had stolen books from, the Houston Public Library and the Albany Public Library. I am assuming that these both have been withdrawn from circulation. Neither of them say that. I don't know. Should I be concerned? The next used book that I have here was a deception because it was sitting on the $1 rack, but then when I got it to the cash register, it turned out I hadn't double-checked the price sticker and it was actually $4. But $4 is still a decent price for a used impulse purchase book for me, so I bought it anyways. And that is Swordspoint by Ellen Kushner. This is a fantasy of manners from 1987. This proclaims itself to be incredibly witty. I hope that's true because I like things that are incredibly witty. I've heard good things about this on BookTube. And this is one of those lovely sort of floppy mass market paperbacks where the spine doesn't break. And also, I realized flipping through this edition has, I believe, several short stories in the back that take place in the same world, just as like extra bonus. Woohoo! Extra bonus! Ha! And then the last of my used books are the ones that I got yesterday that tipped me over the edge of insanity. I have been cautiously deep in the back of my mind contemplating a reread of Philip Pullman's His Dark Materials series. I got these from the library when I was in high school, and my memories about them are more kind of about the feeling they gave me than about anything really specific about the plot. I think I forget about books really, really quickly. I think that's part of why I reread books so often. I forget about them really quickly. Anyways, so I was wishing I remembered what happened in this trilogy, but I never really thought I was going to buy them because I would want to have all three in matching editions, and I just didn't see that as happening in a reasonable price range all in one place. But these are the prettiest cover art designs for these books that I have ever seen, and this thrift store had all three of them for $2 a piece. And they are the Golden Compass, the Subtle Knife, and the Amber Spyglass. So my future reread of these is still further towards the back of my mind than towards the front of it, but now that I have the books, I can pretty thoroughly guarantee you that it will eventually happen. And then my last impulse purchase at this thrift store was inspired in part, I think, by the impending arrival of a certain readathon that's going to start at midnight tonight, and for which I have been searching for some really short things to fill out my TBR to 7 books. And so I grabbed The Arrival by Shaun Tan, which is something that I have heard about pretty regularly all over BookTube. This is, in case you don't know, a graphic novel that is without text. It's told entirely in pictures, and it's meant to be about the immigrant experience. You can see some of the style of the art here. It's black and white, but really really detailed and really gorgeous. This is supposed to have some fantastical visual elements, and there it was, this gorgeous, gorgeous hardcover for $4. So I got it. I honestly don't know if I'm going to end up reading this for the BookTubeathon or not. It certainly would be a good thing for some readathon at some point. If I do end up reading it for the BookTubeathon, it has some things going for it. It does have yellow on the cover, and it is a book that I heard about through BookTube. Okay, we are almost done. We have 4 things left. The first 3 are my small book outlet order. I purchased 3 books from Book Outlet during the summer reading sale that was, I think, maybe last month. And the main reason I placed the order was because I was able to grab a copy of Deathless by Catherynne and Valente. This is her historical Russian fiction fairy tale fantasy novel. I've heard that this is fabulous not only from BookTube but also from people in my real life. Whenever I've met people in my real life who've read any of Valente's work, this is usually the book they've read. And I have had friends tell me that I need to read this if I like her work, which I really do. The next book I've got here is The Bards of Bone Plain by Patricia A. McKillip. It should not surprise you. I am gradually acquiring a number of McKillip books. I don't know much of anything about this one specifically, except that it's been available on Book Outlet for an extremely reasonable price. It's from 2010, and it's one of the McKillip books that's got this beautiful cover art. The cover art is by Kinuko Y. Craft. And these editions, I think, are just absolutely stunning. Like, you have to see this book in person to even start seeing all of the details of these, like, butterflies and birds and little things in the water and things flying in the air. Yeah, a little off topic. So there's that one. And then the last one I have is Tam Lin by Pamela Dean. I was able to get a scratch and dent copy of this that is like hardly damaged at all, and it was super cheap. Unfortunately, I'm not such a big fan of the cover art of this one. It seems kind of hokey. This is a retelling of the Scottish ballad of Tam Lin, which I know like a little bit about, but not like a lot. I have never read anything by Pamela Dean, but this is a book that Goodreads recommendations regularly insists that I will enjoy. I have a really unreasonably high amount of faith, apparently, in Goodreads recommendations, given that it's not a person. It's like a computer program. Anywho, the last thing I have here is perhaps the beginning of a dangerous, slippery slope for my book acquiring habits. I do volunteer once a week at a bookstore, and from this bookstore it is possible for me to acquire arcs of books. I have refrained in part because I really do like to have a lot of reviews of a book available to me before I choose to read it, but the impulse just grabbed me, and I have here an advance copy of The Queen of Blood by Beth Durst. I feel like this title needs to be said with like a certain amount of gravity. The Queen of Blood. Maybe not like that. But this really got my interest because, first of all, I had stumbled across this on Goodreads as an upcoming release, and I had thought that it looked kind of interesting. This author, Beth Durst, has written a number of YA books that Goodreads recommendations likes to throw at me every once in a while. I have not read any of her YA books, but I am kind of interested in general in authors who write both adult and YA. And this is the first book in what is meant to be, I believe, an epic fantasy trilogy, and it is going to be her first adult novel. So seeing that this author had an adult book coming out soon actually made me more interested in her writing than I was before. So I basically know very little about this. I'm kind of looking forward to the experience of diving into a book without seeing a bunch of reviews first. I'm hoping to read this pretty soon, maybe next month. I think it comes out in September. I'm not sure when in September, but it's definitely coming out in September from Harper Voyager. And I am kind of looking forward to the experience, to diving into a new book without a ton of pre-existing expectations. Woo! Okay. I made it through to the end. That's a lot of books. Yeah. A lot of books. I've gone totally bonkers. I've lost my mind. Gone off the deep end. Anyhow, if you've read any of these books, let me know. If you'd like to read any of these books, if there's anything else you want to say, let me know. Okay, that is all. Bye for now.